So today I'm just doing a loopy design on the long arm, and I thought I'd just let you share that little experience if you would like to. Maybe you're thinking about a long arm and you would like to kind of experience what that would be like. And this is, like I said, this is a very simple loopy design. It goes pretty fast. So thanks for joining me, and I will readjust the camera so that you can see what I'm doing. Alright, so I'm about halfway done with this quilt, on the quilting part of it. I've still got to put my clamps on. I've just advanced it. I think I've advanced it like 3 times now. This is a throw size quilt. But these clamps will go on the front. I have my quilt floated, which means I don't wrap it around this belly bar. I have all 3 layers just laying loosely over this bar, but I do put these clamps on to hold it in place. Now my top rail, my leaders from my top rail are pinned to my backing on this. Okay, so I'll just finish putting these on. And then there's a little ratchet mechanism. If you just twist it towards you, it will just tighten that right up. Not too tight. You don't want it too tight. Alright, so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go ahead and stay stitch, or some people call it base, but I just use my regular stitch along each one of the sides. And then I'm going to start my loops here and go all the way down, and then come back around this way, and maybe a third one. I have a 15-inch throat space on my machine, so it's really considered a mid-arm, but I call it a long arm. This is Quilting by the Grace Company. Quilting 15R is the actual name of this one. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and start on this end and just stay stitch this little area right here. I have a ruler that I use for that. This is called QCR Curve It. It has a curve on one side and a straight edge on the other side. So I'll just put my needle down and then bring it back up. And that brings my bottom thread to the top so that I don't get a bird's nest on the back. And I'll just take a few stitches right there to kind of hold it in place. And then I'll just go ahead and I'll stitch about 1/8 of an inch in. You can't really see it from here, but I'm stitching about 1/8 of an inch inside my border. Now I'm bringing my, I push this button right here, and it brings my thread back up, or it brings my foot up, and then I'll do it again to bring my bottom thread back up. And I've got my little scissors around my neck on a lanyard, and I'll cut this one off at the back as well. Now I'm going to come down to this end, and I'll do the same thing on this end. Bring my thread up. And I'll just lay my little ruler right there along the edge of my quilting foot. Now instead of breaking thread, I'm just going to go ahead and go right back up. Clip that back thread off. And on this, I'm using a light green on my top, and I'm using a darker green on the backing, or on the back side, because I'm using a darker green flannel for my backing, and I was afraid the light green would be too light. That dark green really just kind of sinks into that flannel. It's really nice. Okay, but I didn't want the dark green on the top, so I was afraid it would be a little too bold with all the white. I'll go all the way back to the other end, and then that's about as far as I can go down this way. So we'll stop there and then reevaluate. I'm going to try just holding the camera with my left hand while I finish this row, so that you can kind of see the quilting a little bit better. Okay, I'm not sure how that went because I had to watch what I was doing instead of watching the camera. So let me see how we did here. Now you can see that I've just done rows of loops. And let me tie this off, and then I can bring the light back down. Alright, you can kind of see the loops in there. Bring it out a little bit. Now, I learned from Adria Good, which is one of the best free motion long arm quilters I've ever watched. Look her up, Adria Good. I learned that when you're making these loops, you need to make sure that you try to make your circles nice and round. That's what makes a nice looking loop meander. Otherwise, you can wind up with egg-shaped circles or loops, and they're not nearly as pretty as your nice round ones. So thank you, Adria, for that good info. I've learned a lot from watching her. She does fantastic work. I've also learned from watching some other YouTubers like Angela Walters and Natalia Bonner. But yeah, I get little hints. I'm kind of self-taught, but I also get little hints from watching other quilters. So hopefully I can be a little help to some who may be beginners at this. Alright, I'm going to take you around to the back of the machine and kind of show you what it looks like underneath on the flannel part. And I have a mirror on the underside of my long arm so that I can check my stitches. Works really well for me. Okay, like I said, I'm using a darker green on the back, so I'll just move the machine so that I can have the light. You can kind of see that green flannel. Basically, you're just seeing the shapes and not so much the thread. And that's what I wanted. I wanted for it just to kind of blend in. Now, I did want to show you this before I finish this up. I'm going to have to probably roll it one more time. My stitching has ended right about there, and it'll come to about right here, but I'll still have this much left to go, so I have to roll it one more time, advance it. But as you can see here, my top is just barely over the bar, so I will go ahead and put my blue clamps back on, and that will hold it for this advancement. But now after this advancement, when I advance it again, my top will be like about up here, so I will take and pin along the edge of that, not right on the edge, just kind of in a little bit, to hold that in place on the backing. But I still, as you can see, I still have plenty of batting and backing to drape over my belly bar, which is this right here. Sorry, I'm not paying attention to the camera. So if I have this pinned down to all of these layers, and then I put my clamps on, it should work fine. I've done this many, many times. So let me do this advancement, quilt it, and then I'll show you on that last row what I'm talking about. So I have my blue clamps over top of all 3 layers. Even though my top was just barely over the bar, it worked out fine. So then I will do this row, and then I'll come back and show you the rest of it. Okay, I have come to the end of that row. I've loosened everything up on both ends, and now I'm taking my clamps off. Now I haven't advanced it yet. I'm just going to roll it from the top, from the front. I usually go around to the back and roll it. I don't have one of those fancy cranks. I just have to do it by hand. Well, some of the machines have an automated system, and some of them have the big hand crank on one end. Mine is not that advanced. Now, as you can see, the end of my quilt top is way up here, so this is my last advance. So I'm going to just throw that up there. Here is my top. It barely fits over this. If it didn't fit over it, I would have to pin it to this leader and then roll it up on there. But since it fits over, I'm not going to worry about it. Let me go ahead and tighten this back up. Each end of my holes here have a little thing that I clamp, and it tightens that back up. I'm going to leave just a little bit of this hanging down so that when I tighten it up, it won't be right on the top to create an edge there. Now, I hope this will work. Okay. I don't know, it's pretty short. I may wind up having to pin this to the leader. Yeah. It's going to be kind of hard to get it all on there and keep it up there. But I don't know, maybe. Let me see. Alright. Let's take this and bring it over. And I'm reaching up under. You might say, well, why don't you just pin it and get it over with? I may have to, but I'm pulling the backing, the flannel backing down so that it's kind of over that really well. I'm not going to be stitching up in here, I'm only going to be stitching there, so I'll go ahead and put that one down. And I can see that it's good here. Just tighten it up a little bit. And do the same thing on this end. You might not want to go to all this trouble. You might want to just pin yours. But to me, this is faster. If it works, it works. And then I'm going to go ahead and, well, let me go ahead and put this over on the quilt first. Hope you can see what I'm doing, sort of. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and put my clamps on. When I say clamps, I'm talking about my end clamps. And then this little thing right here, small clamp, it goes up on the end of this to hold that in place a little bit better. Not over the batting part, just over the fabric parts. You can probably see it a little bit better right here. I'm just twisting that a little bit and then sticking it on there. I don't think you can see that, but that's what I'm doing. Just to tighten this end up a little bit. Got my end clamps on each side. Now, I'm just going to peek under the bottom just to make sure everything's good, and it is. So now, I am going to, and I would have had to do this pinning regardless. But if I had pinned this to the belly bar leader cloth or not, I would have still needed to pin this to keep it nice and straight. And I can reach up under there. I'm pinning about halfway through. Well, I'm pinning all the way through all 3 layers, but I'm pinning about halfway down on the sashing, the outside border sashing. So that I can have room to quilt around it. Now let me do the other end. And since I can reach up under there now, I can really get it pinned, make sure it goes all the way through. I don't know that I've ever seen anyone else do this, so I may be a rebel here. But I discover things that work for me, and you will do the same if you are a quilter, a long arm quilter. So, we have everything nice and smooth. Tighten it up a little bit. That clicked 3 times, so that's good. Now let me see if it's going to come all the way to the edge. Yes. Okay. So I'm reaching around behind with my hand and holding my ruler so that I can get my 1/8 of an inch. And I'm not measuring anything, I'm just saying an approximate 1/8 of an inch. If you see that your fabric is starting to pleat when you're stitching it, then you'll need to stop and smooth it out. That did not happen, but I thought it might there for a second. Okay, that worked out really well. I didn't have to work through any pleats or anything. Sometimes you will get to the end and you'll have kind of a wavy border, especially if you're doing tight quilting up here. But with these big loops, I didn't have to worry about that at all. Alright, now all I have to do is the rest of my loops. I'm going to travel back up to where I left off. We're down to the last one, and I think these are going to have to be a little smaller because I don't have quite as much room, but that's okay. Looks like everything's good to me. Before I take this off, I think I'm going to go ahead and take my big scissors and cut along this line here. This will just help me when I have to move it around. It won't be quite as bulky. That clamp. Okay, I'm going to loosen these ones up. Like I said, everything on this machine is pretty manual except for the motor on there. Alright, so I'll just roll it out now. Before I unattach it, I'm going to kind of take a peek on the back and double check the front. Looks like everything's working out pretty well. Don't see any mishaps this time. This was a pretty simple one to do. Missed a thread. I love to watch it roll off. And this design is so easy and simple that I was able to quilt this quilt in one evening, and that was with taking about an hour off to do fireworks with my grandchildren. Since we live in the country and they don't, they live in town, they wanted to bring their fireworks out here, and they were very careful, just did them in the driveway. They were very pretty. Okay. When I say grandchildren, I'm talking about grown-up grandchildren with the great-grands. So they definitely were careful and knew what they were doing. Okay, before I take the rest of these off, I'll do that afterwards, off camera. Just want to show you the quilt and how it turned out. Now you're not going to see as much of the quilting. You're going to see a lot of texture is what I'm trying to say. You're not going to be focused on the quilting. You're going to be focused on the piecework and the nice texture that the quilting provides. Okay, so here you can see the quilting a little bit better. A lot of times I will quilt with the overhead lights turned off because it helps me to see my stitches better. So I've got the light turned back on now. So sometimes if you just have the side lights and you're having a hard time seeing your stitches, it will really help. And there's my 2024 Christmas sampler quilt. I still need to put binding on, and then it will be ready for next Christmas. There's my favorite block. I think it turned out pretty cute. This is Nancy with Simply Quilting. If y'all could subscribe to my channel, I would really appreciate that. And click that little bell if you'd like to be notified of future videos. Thanks for joining me, and y'all have a wonderful New Year's. God bless you.